Created to bridge societal divides in a judgment-free zone using candor and humor. My name is Jay, and we are joined today by Hakeem Javaid. How are you doing today, Hakeem?
I'm very well, thank you, Jay. How's yourself doing?
I'm doing great, man. I always like to say it's a good day to be on this side of the dirt, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can say that again.
I mean, it's all about perspective. I'm sure there are other people that have a much different perspective as to what going, a good time is.
Oh, I'm totally with you. I had a great quote the other day. Someone said, I woke up this morning, so I'm winning. And I'm like, yeah, 100%.
It's not wrong. I was sitting today just kind of thinking about today is the election. It's not going to get released, and we don't talk politics here. But I was thinking today, I was like, we're exercising democracy and freedom today, right? I love that it's that opportunity to bring together voices and have this multicultural understanding of what we want to see going forward. So
yes,
I think there's a lot to happen today. But with someone like yourself, we could say that maybe it already happened.
Potentially, yes.
So just to give everybody a little bit of background, why don't you tell everybody, how you started into coding, your tech background, how young you were,
so
everybody can kind of get an idea for the genius behind the thought process you have today.
Cool. All right. So I loved art as a kid. Like, I absolutely loved it. I don't know if you remember Paint, the program on the old Microsoft OS. I lived on it as a kid, and I just fell in love with the monitor, with the digital screen. I saw it as a digital canvas, like a canvas without any boundaries. And my heart was just on this journey to just mastering this canvas to kind of, how a photo captures 1,000 words, it said, right? I saw the screen as they used to say, yeah. And then, a video is like infinite photos in one, but like an interactive image, which is what a screen is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't even capture that in words. So I think I was 11 when the idea struck me. I grew up, and I'm sure you did too, like, you kind of need to, we're told that you need to get a degree to do certain things in life, get a job. You need to follow the certain steps. And I had this belief that in order for me to be able to code and build software and master this screen, I had to get a degree. And then I was like, do I really need to? Like, there's this whole web here. Let me just Google search how to code or where can I learn how to code?
Thank you.
And there's this one website that came up. Oh my God, if I ever meet this guy, I need to give him the biggest hug in the world. It's called Dave's Site. And this is back in the early 2000s. So, stuff like Codecademy and that, they weren't around. Like, it was so hard to find a resource to learn how to code. This guy had built this really well-organized
coders
blog
were Yetis back then. You didn't know if they existed or not. Like, came out of the window.
100%.
I saw a coder. He's so smart. Like, nobody knew back then.
Yeah.
So you were a pioneer,
exactly.
hunting through the web, trying to find that connection to one other person with the understanding or the capability to share the knowledge, right? That's the first expanded consciousness that we have, on paper, where you can see live time that we're able to communicate knowledge, thoughts, and intuition, all sorts of things through technology. And you're bridging a gap right out the gate. 12, 13 years old, I was getting in trouble in church for making fart noises behind the guy in front of me who was like 70 over and over again and not being able to stop laughing. That's what I was doing at 12. There's no coding in my world.
I still saw it as a game. So I saw like coding and art as like playing with Lego. Like, you can pull these things together and you can make cool stuff. I was like, yeah, I want to do that.
Digital Legos.
So this site, Yeah, exactly. I honestly describe it to this day as coding is an art, but it's like playing with Lego. Like the things you can create.
Do you say Lego? God. Are you one of the smart people out there? You say you play Lego. It's not Legos. It's Lego is the name of it.
Oh, is it?
You're saying it correctly.
Yeah,
you're right.
Say Lego, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I explained to people the same way about audio. When I first started working in music, I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
This is just layers. It's just Legos. I'm building one piece on top of another instrument, and putting it all together until it creates one wall of art, right? That is a finished sound, but it's still Legos.
Yes. It's still Lego, yeah, 100%. I didn't actually know there's a difference between Lego and Legos.
Where are you at right now? Let's tell everybody where you're located or where you're from.
I'm in United Kingdom, England, in Birmingham. If you're familiar with the city.
Leave it to the United Kingdom to say Lego correctly. I knew this.
What you say?
Yeah, it's funny. You're going to look it up later, but we say Legos. We never say Lego.
Wait, so what's the correct one? What's the correct?
What you're saying. There's no S on the end of it. It's Lego.
That's funny because I have a mate over in New York and he rips me apart for saying maths instead of math. Because math is technically the correct term, but we in the UK say maths with the S on the end. So I don't know, like it's a hit and miss.
So great.
Different words,
those little idiosyncrasies, that happen over 200 years. You hop a pond, and then what happens? You start saying Legos and adding R's to wash. Wash.
Yeah.
So, a young man, 12, 13 years old, he's discovered that the digital world is his canvas, right? You're sitting there, you've got this newfound art. Where do you go from there?
All right. So the first thing I do is I take this basic coding knowledge, and I want to build a website, the most basic thing. And I remember what it was. It was just like this. It had this bright green background and images of games of Miniclip. And you click these images and then go to the specific game on miniclip.com. Honestly, it's the worst looking website ever, but it's by far the best website I've ever made because of what it represented. It represented me breaking through this barrier of believing something was impossible, and boom, like I proved that it was possible to do something that I was told I couldn't do. And from there, I was just an avalanche. Like I went from this really crappy looking website to learning how to design it better, so I went to graphic design, and then from there, I was able to build decent websites. So I started a business at 14, building websites for small businesses around Birmingham. And I was like, okay, like I'm not only doing something that I was told I need to get a degree for, but I'm also making money without having a job. I'm like, this is what we've been taught about reality just isn't what it is.
There are no rules.
We've been taught that there's so many limitations. Yeah, there are no rules. Like it is ours to write. The rule book is ours to write, and it's all about self-belief. It all comes back to self-belief.
It truly does. Having that internal narrative that supports who you are authentically is what's most important, right? Because then you can act on things like passion in the moment. You don't have to second guess what somebody's going to think of you for being the kid working with pixels versus pencils, right? You have the ability, that was damn good right there, right? But you had that ability to be free enough within yourself to take that step into an imaginative world, right? I tell people all the time, science fiction comes true because it's the least inhibited thought of creativity that we have. We don't give limits to it, so we go out and get it all the time. Everything on Star Trek comes true. Everything we fly around comes true. Like it comes true because we didn't say it couldn't. In fact, we all collectively believed when we were looking at the screen that it was possible because of the narrative told to get it there. Science fiction carries a big, big weight on its shoulders, and comedy.
Absolutely love that. I've never heard that before. I absolutely love that example. If we applied that to everyday life, my gosh.
Think about it.
To our inner beliefs as well, like, oh my gosh.
Right? We suspend all judgment and limitation, throw it to the wind, make shit up. And next thing you know, we're running through meta world with, cheetah skins on, sweating, inside of a building on a treadmill, doing circles, playing Call of Duty, like all sorts of crazy shit going on, right? But it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have like a HUD on a screen, in a movie to give you the idea that you could have a separate set of information in front of you that you could see through. All sorts of thoughts like that were required. And those are your visionaries. They're your imaginations. You know, you can have science all day long, but if you don't have George Lucas on the other side, you don't get it. You don't get the toys that come with the science.
There's a great quote by Steve Jobs. I'm going to pull it up really quickly. It's one of the best quotes, and it captures everything we've just mentioned. And it is. Sorry, give me 1 second. It is right here. So he says, and I know you've heard this before. He says, "Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify them, or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." And I love that quote.
That's
so
beautiful,
much.
Man. That guy was a legit genius and a master of his reality. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? He didn't have much of an outside care, but he made sure that what was in his scope was always on point. Visionary. So let's talk about, you're making money. You're looking at this creamed spinach colored screen, right? And your website, it looks like DOS, and it's horrible. I know, right?
Yeah.
So, but you're having fun with it. You're seeing the ability for it to become bigger things. So you had an entrepreneurial crossroads at a young age that allowed you to probably finance who you are now in different ways.
Oh, big time. Yeah. Like even from those early projects I did for small businesses, like even bringing in up to £1,000 as a 15-year-old, I was like, whoa, okay, I can use this. So I started purchasing these programs, the whole Adobe suite, for example, and I started playing around with video production on a pretty professional level. Like the first ones were obviously over the top, done like way too many effects and all of that. But the more you do it, the more you practice, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So again, what I did actually every summer in between school, I challenged myself to learn a new skill and apply it there and then. So it started with websites, then graphic design, and then videos, and then apps, like an app for a mobile phone. I remember creating this, I don't know if you remember that helicopter game. It was on, I think it was on Miniclip. You just tap and it'd go up and down, and it just
kind of
like
the
that
Flappy Bird thing. You have to keep it. You've got to keep it elevated above a certain height by the time you tap it. Oh, geez. Addictive.
So I wanted to create a really unique game, right? And the one thing in the App Store back then was there was a lack of multiplayer games on the same screen. This is like, I was probably like 17 around this time. And I thought, what if I created a 2-player game? So you'd have the phone in front of you, and the person opposite you would be seeing, obviously, the screen upside down. So what I did was I created this helicopter game, but a 2-player version, and you'd have 2 different helicopters on the screen, but they'd be inverted. So on my side, I'd see the helicopter my way, and their side, I'd see the helicopter their way, and we'd have their own tap areas of the screen, and it would just work as a multiplayer game. And I put it up for free, and it did really well. I was like,
that's
okay,
awesome.
This is interesting.
So my brother-in-law, he's an engineer, works in solar, and one of those people that drop toothpicks and he counts them in seconds, like Rain Man. He sits in front of like Excel. Like when I finished some of my college work, he came in and looked at my finance course. He sat down in front of my Excel spreadsheet and was like running through pages without touching a mouse. Right. When that you're in a different world of capability, when I'll tell you, I learned this. I knew that I was a chimp with a rock and a monitor the first time I started working with my counterparts when I was a solution architect in India. When I was sitting down with them, and those jokers were right in front of the computer manipulating data like nobody's business in Excel, pivot tables, formulas, let me grab this, do that. That mouse could have sat there and held a coffee. It did nothing. And I was just looking at the screen. I was like, I'm going to go home now. I'm all proud of my pivot tables.
I know exactly what it means. My eldest brother is a CFO, right? He's this fancy finance director. And when he's on Excel, oh my God, his hands are flying over the keyboard and it's a tap, tap, tap. I'm like, holy crap, what on earth did you just do? Like, how do you even know what you're doing? Your hands are literally flying
like
faster
the file
than the speed
menus
of light. It's
dropping,
crazy.
shit's saving while it's calculating, and then there's like background stuff going on. I'm looking down at the bottom. There's extra tabs that are going on. What is going on?
Yeah, it's
and
mad, isn't it?
They're drinking like a chai at the same time. Like, holy crap! So
I think this goes back to like when you remove these beliefs of limitations. Like we have this, and like we're surprised by this Excel professionalism because we haven't reached it, right? But these guys, they don't see it as a limit. They don't see it as, oh, this is insane. This is just normal to them. And when something like that becomes normal, like boom, they sort of just fall into it. They don't question it at all, and that's the magic, isn't it? That is the magic.
I absolutely love that. And you brought up the fact that in your earlier years, you had to get a degree before, you could make money, or that was your thought process, right? Well, at least that's what we're sold, right? We're sold this
shit.
Yeah. Right? I didn't start out with a degree. I grew up poor in southern rural Florida, alcoholics and drug addicts and yada, yada, yada. And I did not have a degree. I went to the military. And then after the military, I went to college at night and all that happy stuff. And I can tell you, one day I was making 5 figures. And the next day I was making 6 figures only because I had that piece of paper. And I tell people, to this day, that a college degree, while there is an education wrapped in it and you can use it for that, it's still just a ticket to the middle school dance. That's it. Right?
Yep.
I'm sorry, it's not the middle school dance, it's the middle class dance. It really is. That piece of paper is your ticket to the middle class dance. Right? You can't get there without having that. You don't get the house at a certain level. You have to live, in mechanic land, where everybody looks down on someone that does a blue collar job. Probably they're making a shit ton more money than you guys. But the theory is that you have to have that stupid piece of paper in order to sit down with the other people and play the new game. It's like getting at the new poker table, the back room, where you're allowed to play with more money. But at the end of the day, I was just as smart the day before and the day after I got that stupid paper. I was like, all I was doing was just trying to get through classes. That's it. Like, all I had to do was just focus on now. And then there was that piece of paper and then money, right? And I hate that exists. I do think, I got a side question for you, because you have to be plugged in pretty well to the technological advances that we're having these days. Is college no longer the gatekeeper for knowledge and the ability to move up the ladder fiscally or socioeconomically? Does AI challenge that status quo and give the person with the right handout the opportunity to bypass a lot of the BS that it takes for somebody else to get to the top, that wouldn't have had the opportunity based on some kind of implicit bias or racism or, poverty-stricken area that they come from? But now AI lands in their hands, something as simple as, say, Chat GPT. Where are we going? Is this a level set to a certain degree or an opportunity?
So I know exactly how to answer that. So 2 parts, yes and a no. So in terms of universities and colleges being the keys to knowledge, definitely not. Like, that is no longer a thing. But the biggest limitation in terms of, progressing and going up the ladder in society, not necessarily corporate, but just even like when it comes to any job, really, there is still some keys that they hold because of social convention, social reputation. Like, people will still want to see that you have that check, that tick, right? They want to see that degree in certain industries, regardless of how much you know. There's still a level of comfort that as humans, we would want to invite into our companies, into our groups, into our teams, right? So there will still be some weight that universities and colleges hold. But again, it does come down to the industry. For example, like if you're going to go into medicine, you're going to need a degree, right? You're going to need to go through that training, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to stuff like being a web developer or software engineering, data scientist, more the technical math science, like, you do not need a college degree. And I really want to emphasize that, because even in the not so much the high corporates, but like any big company today, like the tech companies, you'll see quite often now that they really don't care about degrees. They'll say, if you have a portfolio, we will happily look at that over the fact that you don't have a degree. And I do this myself for the companies that I'm running now. Like I emphasize, you do not need a degree. Like show me a portfolio that shows off your skills, and I will go based solely off that. It is slowly moving in the direction where universities and colleges won't hold any keys, but again, because of social convention and what we're used to, they will. And a great quote that I came across once in relation to why Apple only releases one feature at a time with every phone update is because society can only accept one change at a time. So I know that we have this huge AI evolutionary boost, but as humans, we cannot accept such a big change. We need to take it small step by small step.
We do have our mouth on a fire hydrant right now. I feel like I cannot consume enough of the capabilities fast enough, right? To capitalize on them, to make them part of much like yourself, I'm an artist. That's what I do. I was not an artist before in my mind. I did several different roles throughout life. You heard the abridged version, right? All that taught me was that I can do anything. I can do it on any level, right? However, I will not be happy, nor will I feel fulfilled, nor will I reach my full potential if I'm not doing it from within myself, right? If I'm not acting authentically and passionately. So we come back. I want to circle back real quick, right? We took a detour into art and into AI, right? And technology. And we do see that this is impacting what we're going to talk about because time feels accelerated now. Right? It really does. If it doesn't to you, you live in North Dakota and I'm jealous, right? You're out on a prairie somewhere. And you have no idea what any of this shit is and don't care, right? That's what's so bizarre about being human, right? Is that there could be a human that exists at the same time as us, and there are, that has no clue this stuff is a problem or a good thing or anything for that matter, right? Doesn't even exist to them. So the fact that those two things can exist in tandem is weird enough, right? But we see how the advancements are coming. Like, I feel like every time I open up my website, or open up the web, Elon Musk is releasing the next, iRobot that's going to come through and, my grandma thinks it's going to rip our head off. And, so with your background in technology, right, looking at time, right, and the advancement of civilization as a whole, does this come into play when you think about how we perceive time in these situations?
It can. It most definitely can. So,
weird question, right?
So just to give some quick background on the whole time thing. Last year, in January 2023, I was out snowboarding and I broke my arm. And I was out for 6 months. And that meant I couldn't code, I couldn't go rock climbing, couldn't play piano. Everything that I self-identified with, right, I couldn't do. So I felt like my entire life would be put on pause. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm experiencing this physical barrier, but that doesn't mean there's a barrier like mentally or spiritually. So let me dive into that. And that's when I came across this question. I don't really know how it came, but it just popped in my mind. The biggest limitations naturally are down to facts of reality that we've accepted without realizing it, right? So the question I posed to myself was, what deep belief or fact of reality have I accepted without ever questioning? And that came across, and one of the questions that came to mind was time. Like, time is this quantitative thing and it just goes linear and we're kind of all slaves to it, et cetera, et cetera. But there's so many mysteries around it, right? There's so many questions like the one you just posed. Like, is this flow of time with the rate of advancement of technology, is that linked to it? Can it be explained by it? And 100% it can. Because one of the first realizations I had about time was, as you know, as humans, we love to overcomplicate everything, right? And we have so many different 100%. Definitions for time, like from physics to philosophy to even poetry, right? So I thought, okay, let me just break it all down to this most basic elements. What is time? And when you really think about it, what the numbers we see on our clocks are hours and minutes. when you go past the fact that it's tied to the rotations of the Earth, momentum, the angular momentum, etc., kinetic energy, time is essentially energy. So the flow of time is the flow of energy. And in my book, I've split the chapters into 7 chapters, which represent 7 levels of understanding of time. And this time is energy is actually just the first level. To understand time is energy. So whenever we describe time, whether it's the rate of time, the flow of time, the passage of time, you can also switch that word with energy, like the flow of time, the flow of energy. So bringing that definition to the question you pose, the rate of advancement of technology is time itself being sped up 100% in 2 different ways, actually. So we see technology and the position we're in relation to the advancement of technology being sped up, right? So we've just in a matter of 2 years, we've gone from having artificial AI, like really like
machine learning, big box
AI,
of letters
like,
crap.
Exactly right. Today, like where it's generative AI, it's ridiculously powerful. That is an advancement and like an acceleration of time because of the steps we've taken over the past 10 years. So the steps of the position we are in terms of advancement of technology has itself taken big leaps. But the other side to it is, as a human, as an everyday individual, the amount of work we can get done now has been drastically increased. So if you think of that in terms of energy, 2 years ago, if you wanted to write a blog post, it would probably take you a day, right? A really good blog post. Now you can get it done in minutes, like literal minutes.
Yeah.
So the flow of energy there, the energy input that you need to get in to get some energy out, that has been drastically
that's a hell of a multiplier.
So exactly, yeah. So it's not just the time being accelerated in terms of calendar years, but our time as humans, we've accelerated it on a day-to-day basis so drastic that the acceleration of our own advancements, whether it's in a world progression or increasing the step around us, that has been itself increased. Like it's on a whole new level. So AI has a huge impact across everything, absolutely everything, and it has advanced our rate of time to a degree that we can't really ignore it now. So
I love that.
I hope that answers your question.
No, it does answer my question. It absolutely does. And I feel like when we look at it as a whole from the outside in, it's a lens, right? And I feel like time itself, I like to think that, and this came for me through meditation. I talk about it on the show all the time. Any of my understandings are fundamentally rooted in the fact that I had to sit on my ass and think about, nothing. Well, actually think about the fact that I don't need to think about and that stuff exists regardless of that. So through meditation, it allowed me to question a little bit more as well. And I was much simpler, a lot more savage about how I created my theory. It was, you're hawking and I'm a caveman. I said, no tomorrow, no yesterday, always now, everything else mind. And I said, well then, if there's no tomorrow and there's no yesterday, then time is a lens with which you view all existence. And I think that AI might be one of 2 things. Either it is a lens cleaner or it's a lens expander through which you can see all of what is already there. I believe that we're a firework in place and that time is that lens with which we take and view what is already there through. That's just kind of how I've manipulated it in my own head. I don't even know if it makes sense. Somebody might listen to this, tune in, and be like, listen to this fucking lunatic.
No, I do understand that. I really do. And I love that. I did actually use that phrasing, but I don't know where. I think it was more in relation to our definitions of reality are the lens through which we see reality, right?
Son of a bitch, you're right. It's a prescription too. Every person has, it's a sum of all layers of experiences over time. No 2 are the same.
Oh, you actually hit one of the most core fundamental foundations of time. Like time is unique to absolutely every single individual. And like, not even just every single individual, like every object, every individual, and at different points in time, that lens changes too, as you describe it. It always changes, and it's always so unique. It's never the same.
Shut the front door. I wouldn't have understood this 10 years ago. Like it wouldn't have, it would have flew right by me. But more recently, I've been researching the mind and how we take in information because, and I think I even said this in the last show, I found out that now I have nightmares and fucking anxiety and panic attacks and all this other shit, but I don't have a mind's eye. I do not have the ability to imagine something. I have something called aphantasia, right? Yet if the two of us were standing in front of someone else and we were explaining our life experience, we would never ask what was going on inside the theater, right? Your theater has a screen. You don't question it because you assume everybody's got a screen. There was an architect, went under, he had a routine surgery, came back and said, son of a bitch, I can't see anything I could see before. Where did it go? The screen is off. I used to think that I had the same mind as everyone else and that they were consuming reality in the same manner.
Yeah.
It's not true. Reality can be consumed in different manners through the mind. Some people have ticker tapes. Some people have internal voices. Some people have fucking, I don't know what, a movie screen. So if that's possible, right? How the hell could time not fit into that? Right? It has to, because the consumption of reality is different.
Yep.
It blew my mind. It shattered shit. Like, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. You guys can actually see that imaginary apple we're talking about? Like, no, I was mad at first. I was like, you guys all got a fucking theater, and here I am playing like Energy Man and just remembering shit and trying to, hypothesize what it is you guys are talking about. Like, imagine you're on a beach. Yeah, go ahead.
What is aphantasia? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Absence of a mind's eye.
Okay.
Please look it up. It's been a while since I've looked it up. If you want to look it up, let's talk. It's very bizarre. And again,
so when you say you remember things, right? When you think of a memory, do you still not see it in that?
Man, it's context? So hard to explain. And you're not the first person to ask me this.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I don't see. I know.
Okay.
I know where I've been, and it's just there. I can feel a place. I can tell you, my hypothesis is that I navigate life through a different set of senses, so to speak, because you take away one, what happens to another, right? I think we're explaining also why some people can walk into a room and be like, there's a fight going on in here. It's nonverbal. There's a fight. I don't want to be here. I'm out the fucking door. Whereas your friend, Mark, is like, where's the chicken wings? And he doesn't notice that somebody's marriage is falling apart right before their very eyes, right? It's because we consume things differently, right? So I think that, just like you were saying, I believe that we consume, much like our reality, time as well has to come with it. And maybe it's just all part of that original explosion.
I have a question. You know how a lot of our beliefs literally define our abilities, limitations, and possibilities, right? So I'm probably chatting complete bollocks here, but do you think there's a possibility that the belief that you have, again, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation, Aphantasia, do you think that's limiting the possibility of you gaining that ability?
That's a great question. Is it a self-imposed limitation simply by accepting it as a reality or giving it life within me? You may not be wrong.
It's a difficult one to think about, isn't it? It
is. And I'll agree with you. And here's why. Much like I believe that our abilities are limitless, right? I believe that we can do a lot more than we think we can, and we prove it on a daily basis. Let's use baseball as the standard here. Somebody walks out there, their goal is to hit what? A home run. You stand them up there, you put them in front of a pitching machine, it flies at them, they swing it. Flies at them, they swing it. Flies at them, they swing it, right? Until eventually they hit a home run, right? And then what happens? They continue to hit home runs, right? To me, practice is confirmation of capability in small bite-sized amounts, when in reality, you were able to hit a home run on day one. However, for you to believe you could, you had to hit to first base, to left field, to the warning track, then over the fence. However, you were fully capable the whole time. So to your point, am I putting myself in a limited situation? Hell yeah. I have to be. It just, to me, there's no limitation anyhow. So that screen for me is there for a reason. You know, or that
so
inability to see. Yeah.
That could potentially reveal some more on this. You dream.
Right? Isn't that weird?
yeah, right. So what I love about dreams, the whole
I ask myself the same question.
The whole thing, one I really want to dive into, because I think it holds so many mysteries and like the next biggest revelation for humanity. But sleep, and to be in that delta state, that really low brainwave state, you're pure subconscious, right? As in naturally you're pure. So you can remain conscious through meditation and go into lucid dreaming, etc. But in a natural dream state, it's pure subconscious. So the conscious beliefs, like limitations that come to mind, they're all sort of step back, like they're layers that have just been peeled back in that state, which is why in our dreams we can fly, right? We have like these, not necessarily beliefs that we can do more, it's more less limiting beliefs, if that makes sense.
I do agree. We haven't been given the set of human capabilities and limitations that are handed to you as a child or taught to you up to like whatever age before you snap into reality. That starter Lego set.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that if you can dream and have these vivid visual scenes, right? I think that you can break through this barrier of the non-image imagination. Like you say that you have this knowing, and I think that is definitely part of it. But the visual aspect of it, as in the only way to really find out if there is a barrier there is to believe that it is there, right? The barrier there, right? So if you want to try it, like just tell yourself that you can. And it all starts with our verbal talk, right? Our voices influence our thoughts influence our emotional perspectives and everything, right? That's one of the easiest ways to reprogram our subconscious mind. So if you start saying, first off, forget the word aphantasia, right? Completely kind of get your subconscious to forget it. Remove it from your inner dictionary and start telling yourself, yeah, I can visualize this app on my desk just as perfectly in my mind. Like I can. Avoid the negatives, like double negatives, like doesn't work with our mind. Just try it. Just try it. And it'll be interesting to see if it does leads to any encouragement.
If you were my therapist, you would say I was blocking something from my childhood that I just don't want to see anymore. He's told me that a few times.
Maybe.
It's like you painted your screen black. You're like, I don't want to see this shit again. This is the final showing at this theater was at age 7. Like, that was it.
Oh gosh, it is funny how a lot of it comes back to that, though, isn't it? Like the emotional programming we have, like literally defines so many of our abilities.
It's an infinite number of unresolved knots in a length of rope that is life. You walk down this path, and when you hit a situation, you can either live through or save for later.
Yeah.
And if you save it for later, you tie a knot in your rope. The further you get into it, what happens to a piece of rope if you tie knots in it over and over? Becomes a useless mess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Got to sit back down, untie them. And then you realize that they were all just self-limiting beliefs that other people installed in you to give themselves some kind of validation in their own victimhood. It's fucking weird. We throw around our feelings and thoughts like the flu. We cough our thoughts into other people's faces and give them something to take away that causes them a shitty day or whatever it is. I don't think we understand that we're that reverberatory. Like everything you push, it's going. Like if you brake check the guy on the road, there's a chance he goes home and slaps his wife into next year. Just because you pushed him that one little bit. That last step, the straw that broke the camel's back, I think they say. Yeah. That's everybody's a camel. Yeah. Everybody's a camel with a full load. Stop fucking giving people straws.
I just got that image on my mind. Everybody's a camel.
Everybody's a camel. That's an ugly animal. Like, I love all God's creatures or the earth's creatures, however you want to look at it. But that thing is just vile. It snots and slobbers and spits, and it's just gross.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I love that. That's
also, I think it's the only animal that endorsed cigarettes, right? For a long time, the camel cigarettes. Were there any other cigarettes endorsed by an animal?
Oh, I don't know, actually.
I don't think there is.
I didn't actually know camels dawned on me.
Companies all use animals, but that camel man, he was he had shades on and was token a stoke all the time. But so let's go back to what you have going on now. And let's talk about the theory of what? Extuity?
Extuity, perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sitting in front of Barney right now, and Barney is going to teach me what the theory of extuity is on a... Does this make sense? I need everybody to have a seat at the table. So to make it less, painful, we'll say I am missing a certain amount of my prescription on my glasses. Can you please fill in those gaps by being as plain as possible with the explanation?
Okay. Before I give an explanation, I'm just going to give a quick recap of the journey I took to reaching it. So last year, I had this question, what deep facts of reality have I accepted without ever questioning? And time was one of them. And alongside that, I actually started diving into meditations and lucid dreaming, which is something I've always done accidentally. And I wanted to just expand on it. And I also started diving deeper into psychology. I wanted to understand the programming that emotions control over our entire being, right? I was diving into so many different areas, which we would think are seemingly disconnected. But the deeper I got into time, deeper I got into psychology, the deeper I got into these ancient monk teachings, I came across this moment where there was just like this pattern that connected all three. And I was like, holy crap, what on earth is this? And it all did stem from this idea that time is energy. And when you do take that concept and apply it to these different schools of thought, it gives you a different lens to look through effectively. So the theory of extuity, it's one that it is difficult to explain because I went down all these different levels of understanding of time. And as I mentioned earlier, society can only accept one change at a time. So if I go straight to the end, people will be like, what on earth does that even mean? So to kind of, I guess, summarize and just hint at what it all means is extuity is an ability that as humans, we have been completely unaware of, that is so deeply intertwined with time. We've only ever really witnessed the side effects of it, which are coincidence, which are, I had a little list here, which are coincidence, deja vu, the idea of manifestation, but that itself is incomplete because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. What's that? What's happening there? The Mandela effect, if you've heard of that. Again, we have the law of attraction and then free will and fate, right? We have all these questions, but originally I was like, yeah, I'd love to find an answer to all of them. But it turns out that once you understand how we are connected to time, it answers every single one. It shows how we as a human, as not just energy, but as conscious energy, we are connected not just to this point, this present moment. We're connected to all of our future selves, and I do mean plural, and our past selves, which again do mean plural. And in between all of these layers of time that we dive into, one of the cool aspects of time that I could actually dive into, which doesn't require so many levels of time to understand, is this feeling of when time speeds up and slows down, right? When we're having fun, time seems to go faster. When we're bored or like...
You're speaking to an ADHD mind, so this hits home. There's going to be a lot of people that hear exactly what you're about to say and they understand it because it's called hyperfocus. Hyperfocus is one of the biggest places you can lose all time. It disappears. And it's when you create from a passionate place. I think that there's a vacuum in that moment.
Ooh, okay. So
sorry, I didn't mean to.
It's just based on that. No, we can deal with that. So in the moments where time seems to fly by, right? I actually found a different pattern which connected to a different discovery in physics. Have you heard of time dilation?
No, I have not.
Okay, it's a pretty
sounds like time would dissipate over time.
Thing to dive into.
It would become bigger.
So it stretches and squeezes. It's elastic. Okay. Yeah, no, exactly that. So this is a derivative of Einstein's theory of relativity, and it's something that we've actually discovered today to be a thing. So to summarize, the closer an object travels to the speed of light, time for that object slows down, and time around it sort of flies by, right?
Mm-hmm.
And building on top of that, the greater the gravitational energy an object experiences, the slower time ticks for that again. So in both scenarios, the greater the energy that acts on an object, the slower time flows for it. And time around it flies by. So it's like, let's say you picture a 3-lane motorway or highway.
Mm-hmm.
If for you, let's say you're all traveling at the same speed. Let's say all of a sudden you decide to slow down. That's a representation of your time slowing down. All the other cars are going to go flying by. But it's not your time it's not really the time around you that's being affected. It's your time that's being affected in relation to it. So there's moments where time around us seems to fly by. Our energy, our internal energy is slowing down to a rate where our internal clock is ticking slower. And because we're obviously not affecting the clocks around us, it seems to go, it's flying by. And that's exactly what is proven in physics, time dilation. So on Earth, all clocks here tick at the standard rate. But in satellites, GPS satellites, the clocks are actually programmed to tick faster. To tick faster. Is it faster or slower? It's one of them. Okay, let's break this down. So in a greater gravitational field, our clock will tick at a certain rate, but it's slower.
It would have to be, theirs would have to be slower because it would have to make up for the fact that it's further away from a gravitational pull. Is that right?
So they will be ticking fast. Yes, exactly. That's it. So
I'm following along. Check that out.
That is amazing. That's amazing. So this is a proven thing. So in GPS satellites, they're actually programmed to tick slower to match the speed of our clocks here in a greater gravitational field. Okay, we have proven and can actually experience day to day that time can be stretched and squeezed for individual entities based on the energy they're experiencing. Now, these are just non-biological entities, but we've never questioned how time flows for biological entities where there isn't a constant rate of flow of energy, right? Because in the clock, it's constant. In a biological entity, it's not constant, like it's flowing at different varying rates. So what does that mean for time? It means that time actually does speed up and slow down by the very definition in physics that was proven so many years ago. Our time, when it does speed up and slow down, and we have this feeling that time is speeding up and slowing down around us, it actually is. But no one's applied time dilation in physics to biological energy. And that was one of the first revelations at the time that came. I was like, holy crap, is that really true? Because then you dive into aging and all that, et cetera. So it does make sense there too. So when you see people who are stressing so much and going through a difficult period, that's low energy. their time is being sped up. So they're aging quicker, right?
I didn't even think about that part. I just thought about the experience. Right? The experience itself becomes longer based on that low density vibration.
Yeah, exactly. So in the inverse, it's proven that when we're living a life of purpose, like purpose that energizes every single cell in our body, that's high energy. And we tend to have longer lifetime spans, right? The last time our lifetime is increased. It said if you have a purpose, you on average live, I think it's 15 years longer. So our time internally is slowing down in comparison to everyone else around us. Like we see it.
Or adults that have children at older ages are documented to have longer lives. Purpose to live for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question. We've gone through a lot of stuff, so I'm curious now. I want to start digging into this because I want to know what you think about what my interpretation is, or maybe there's something that you understand that could shed light onto how I'm looking at it. From what you've explained, one thing kept coming into my mind as you were explaining that time is energy, right? Well, that bothers me because everything is also energy. Matter is energy. Denser, harder, lighter, easier, right? Is time the vibration of existence? And is it in waves? Is it a faster wave, brings you closer together in time? Or is it a longer, slower vibration that brings those layers apart? Does that make sense?
So
am I way off?
Yes. And I love how you described it as, what do you say, vibrational energies. That's what you said, right? Okay. So time is energy is a definition that is the most basic and fundamental definition for time, right? And it all comes down to, as you say, it does kind of confuse you because it comes down to which energy you're then looking at.
Correct.
Time is not just unique to each object, but it's unique to each type of energy. There are, I believe, 3 different times that we as a human experience, because I see us as having 3 parts. We have our biological body, we have our energetic soul / quantum body, and we have our mind, our consciousness, which is an energy we don't even understand yet. I believe we have 3 different times.
No, that does not surprise me because the biological entity it's wash and wear, and it's also disposable and compostable, right? And as far as I'm concerned, I was born on the roller coaster of life. I didn't ask to be here. I came into reality already on the ride. So that tells me there's something behind me and there's something further on. There's tribes in Africa that I read a long time ago. They have this really cool thing that they do because you described that we have 3 different types of states and, time as a being or as biological. And that makes me think birth, death, and life, right? That immediately pops into my head because these tribes did something very interesting where they only took the youngest, the babies, the toddlers in the tribe, and they would leave them with the oldest in the tribe at all times. And their explanation for this was both sides were the closest to where they came from. How enlightening is that? Like, it's like, shit, that's not wrong. Right? Now, that's saying that the door is the same on both sides. However, it does show that you're going nowhere and you came from nowhere. So nowhere is the closest place on either end, birth and death. So you guys hang out, enjoy how you are still similar. Because it is kind of funny that when you grow up, you have a certain amount of time in childhood that you don't remember shit, right? And then all of a sudden, you're either brought in, with a nice bath or something sweet that brings you into reality, or you have a parent that punches you in the face and then you realize that you're alive, right? Same thing though, when you're dying, you start to feel you're connected to something other than here. We hear it all the time. I see so-and-so in the room with me. Guess what? They're probably right on the other side of that silk screen that we've put up, Aphantasia, right? That doesn't allow us to see that everybody's already here, right?
Yep.
How do we clean that lens?
Yep. Ooh. Is there anything to clean?
Boom, right in there. That's a great question. I'm proud of myself for that one. How do we clean that lens and see the layers? If we're going to say they all exist.
So when you say they all exist, break that down for me.
Everything exists all at once, the lens being time.
Yep.
And we're hypothesizing that there is more to what we see, right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Beyond what we're currently capable of consuming, whether it is intellectually change-driven or, scientifically. Where is that moment where the light turns on? Is that, are we talking about like singularity or some weird shit where biology?
Well, actually, that's interesting.
I like throwing this shit out there.
Yeah. So I actually haven't kind of answered that from my own experiences in the past, because I've been jumping from project to project, and I've been doing things that people keep saying, like, how the hell do you even manage to do that, right? I'm breaking a level of impossibility. But that all started from honesty. When I built that first website, I did something that I thought was impossible. In other words, I broke a lens through which I was looking through.
A limitation lens.
I broke one layer of that lens. I guess you can say there are potentially infinite lenses that were
there are.
And I broke one. And when I realized that I could break one, I started breaking another one, then another one, then another one. Once you break that first layer, that first lens, that's when you're on that path to removing that lens, that overall lens.
I think that's beautiful. So I think there's a byproduct of what you're discussing. And I believe that you embody this, and I'm sure you could probably agree with me, that when given the time to recognize that lenses exist, and given the time to show how malleable or the ability to get rid of them is, does that afford you the opportunity to see the construct of the people around you and empathize with them for their plight throughout life, knowing that they are comprised of lenses?
That's a great question. Oh, I love that question.
I feel like the onus is on the person that discovers lenses to give people the ability to live outside of their perspective in their moment until they get the chance to view time.
I have a really funny answer to that question. I think it comes down to whether
please just say
you
first
as an
word
individual,
and then end. I like weird stuff. Like, damn it.
So honestly, I think it comes down to whether that individual who's breaking through lenses still has a lens that blocks them from seeing others as the same individual as them.
Ooh, that's deep.
It depends on whether you've broken through that specific lens. And if you have, then 100%, you can see and empathize.
That's like Jesus level lens, dude.
On such a deep level.
That's a Jesus lens.
Yeah.
Right? As a human, if we were going to look at, humanity, we would say that particular lens that we like to embody in him, no matter what you believe in, right? The story says accepting all people, washing the feet of people, that lens, so to speak, was not there. And that ability to recognize yourself in others. I feel like that is a very difficult leap for a lot of people. And I think I know why. And it's because you have to admit how good you have it in a moment when you see something before you that doesn't. That's why we ignore the homeless person on the street. We walk by, we look the other way. Why do we look away? It's not because they're dirty. It's not because they're, hungry. It's not because they're disheveled. It's not because any of those things, but what? To take in that full experience means you have to benchmark yourself again and say, oh shit, I got 4 TVs and 3 bedrooms and a nice place to live. And maybe it's an implicit bias. Maybe I was born in a nice neighborhood. I don't want to admit that, right? Because then it looks like I'm giving something up, like I did something wrong. People think that
you're giving up point of self-identification. That's what you're giving up. And then it leads to, okay, am I not the person I thought I was? Am I a completely different person? And then our deep ego, ancient fears begin. Like everything, any little thing that could change who we are means that our entire reality has changed, which means that our ego does not know we can survive as that person. There is always
it creates a new fear vacuum.
Oh, big time. Oh, yeah.
Sweet. I love this. I didn't even think about that. I've been living in this as of late. True story.
Yep.
I hate doing videos alone. I do not like looking at a camera and talking to non-existent people. It's weird to me. I'm Gen X. I don't understand it. Like, I need the emotion, a face. I need someone to understand me. I need someone to north and south, right? I need something. Also, I have horrible, debilitating body dysmorphia and what's the words I'm looking for? I went through a lot of things as a child that made me not believe that I was worth watching. And that if anybody was looking at me, they would all see the things that I hated about myself. Right?
Yep.
So, and I don't believe I'm alone in that. Right? But it does take a step forward. It's really difficult to put yourself in a new fear vacuum by crossing that threshold. And I think you're giving me strength in this now that I think about it, because vacuum fear is non-existent. If I don't give it what it needs, then it never has to be there to begin with. I'm actually scared of something that's not even in the room, that hasn't even been developed yet. Right? And for all intents and purposes, that could actually be a vacuum, not a vacuum of fear, but one of opportunity.
Oh, big time. Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Because it's uncharted area.
A quote, the magic we're looking for lies in the work we've been avoiding.
Fuck, that's good. Dude, you have so many good quotes. I could talk to you forever.
Oh, I love quotes. Honestly, like back at high school, like I used to annoy the crap out of everyone around me because I just like quote. Like, dude, what the hell?
I do voices for everything. That's how I annoy people. Like,
nice.
When things are over, I have a voice for anybody and everybody. But that's why I do voice acting and animated characters and that kind of stuff. Because, right?
Yeah.
To wrap up on something, right? Because we're discussing the fact that time does and doesn't exist, right? Or it has like something outside of us. That means that we're infinitely capable in any moment in time of maximum potential without inhibition when we act purely on intuition, passion, and self. We see people become the best of the best of the best. One day on the street, next day on the, in a car. But the definitions are always different, right? And I think without time existing, we're capable of anything and everything is possible, right? So if you're listening right now and you take anything from this, if you can't grasp the concepts that we're discussing, or you need to listen to it a couple of times, or maybe you haven't meditated yet to get that vacuum to work within this with, because we didn't even get into the fact that meditation or plant medicine or other areas allow doorways to be opened into the mind that give you a sneak peek behind the curtain, right? I like to say that just like meditation, even pharmacologically, we've come up with great ways. People hate big pharma, but there's one good thing about them. They're a pause button for a mental anguish to give you the ability to identify the problem. Then you can come off the medicine. But in order to get to this, you have to have that opportunity to be alone with yourself. And sometimes that's really hard, right? But if you give yourself the confidence that there's no such thing as time and you are limitless, you're a walking home run, right? At any given moment, then that's all you need to take away, right? If you believe that, time doesn't mean shit. It's null and void. Your lens is wiped. You're there. But you have to remember, when you clean your lenses and you look backwards, the people looking at you don't have the same view. The onus is on you to tell them how to clean them and be free, right? Use time to your advantage. Use time to your advantage by being infinitely capable. Thank you so much, Hakeem. I want to invite you back for another episode another day.
I'd love to. Maybe after you've read the book, like, it's not just about time. So what
it comes out the 11th, right? Or the 10th, something
book.
like that?
It's the 11th, yeah. 11,
I like
there's
that.
7 levels. Yeah, exactly. So there are 7 levels, but I've added a side level to each one. And because each level sort of gives you a new perspective of reality. With each new perspective, I had a new question. And if you don't mind, I'd love to just share a summary of the last side level of side level 7.
Please
it's a question that I think even you'd find quite interesting. Okay, so going back to this idea of, we all have these lenses and deep-rooted facts of reality. Memory. We define memory as being one-directional, right? Memory is of the past. That's how we literally define it. Memory is remembering the past. What if we remove this notion, this belief that memory is only of our past? What if we allowed ourselves to believe that memory is omnidirectional in time? Would it allow us to remember future?
Dude,
I'm not going to say anything more on that, but what I will encourage is try and just forget that definition and just remove the definition of memory and just see what happens, because
don't tell me I can't play piano before I see one, because you might be fucking up my genius. You're handing me a limitation. Wipe that lens and look into the future. I like it.
Exactly.
Right? Maybe time isn't now. Time is understanding that it's all of it.
It's all of it. Yeah, absolutely is. And dude, after you've read this book, I know you're gonna have a million questions. I'm
excited about it.
Absolutely love to jump on the call.
Yeah, you don't find people that you can have conversations like this every day. And I hope everybody else enjoyed it as much as we did. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, where the book is coming out, so that they can get it right away. And we're also going to put all this information in our show notes too.
Awesome. So the book will be up on Amazon, UK and US. If you just search for Extuity, Extuity, you'll find it. There is extuity.com if you want more information on it. And for me personally, my bio and history of all the companies I've built to date, hackjav.com, HAKJAV.com. So that's just the first 3 letters from each of my names. And that's sort of like my online.
You've done a lot of cool stuff. We didn't even talk about that. You've got like some legit backgrounds, like where you put together some like a smartwatch thing too. You worked with, right? Is that something you did?
Saw that,
like, dude, like I was looking at something like this guy's done it all, like in such a short amount of time, and just again a short amount of time, just proving time doesn't exist. Stacking up them chips live time. Right?
Yep.
All right. Well, remember everybody, be cool and keep learning. In just one second.